Really delighted to be able to speak at this session this afternoon. As Sarah said, I'm the Chief Scientific Advisor in the Department for Business and Trade, and in that role I advise the department on science, engineering and work that underpins the sort of growth that we want to see throughout the economy. And that vantage point offers me a really strong view of the technologies that are shaping our future, and it's really clear that critical raw minerals sit at the foundation of all of our aspirations. So if I could just go to the next slide, please, then. So why critical minerals matter? So as we know, a secure supply of critical minerals is going to be vital for our economy, for the growth that we want, for our national security, our industrial strategy, our clean energy transition. But we also know that they are increasingly exposed to global competition, market distortion, etc., creating great uncertainty. So last November, the government published a new critical minerals strategy called Vision 2035, which set out an ambitious sort of pathway forward with some key targets within it. The approach sort of builds on the UK's strengths, as you'd expect, so leveraging our expertise in midstream processing, recycling, drawing on the UK's geological potential and deepening that sort of international partnerships to build really diverse and sustainable, resilient supply chains. In fact, just last month, I think it was, I was in Toronto for the world's largest mining conference, PDAC, where I met with a number of global industry leaders and senior G7 officials to discuss precisely how we are going to go about this and put these ideas into practice. So really delighted to this afternoon be discussing what delivering the strategy actually means. So if you go to the next slide, it's worth emphasising then that the strategy represents a real step change in the UK's approach, and I'm hoping you'll agree it reflects a new era where competition for resource is increasing, pressures on supply chains are growing, and so the strategy is designed for this moment to look forward, be ambitious, and to hopefully equip us for the challenges ahead and the changes that we need to make to our approach. So three sort of key pillars then. First of all, we've set out some ambitious goals to build our domestic resilience and diversify our supply chain. So as the strategy lays out, by 2035, we want to see 10% of our demand being met through domestic production, 20% through recycling, and no more than 60% of any critical mineral being imported from a single jurisdiction, a single country. We think these targets are achievable, and they're designed to give clarity to the industry and to investors, and to also signal to other nations that we are committed to the sector and we think we've got something to offer in this space. Secondly, we've introduced a growth minerals list, which is a forward look at a set of minerals that we think will be absolutely essential to the sectors that are going to drive the UK's future economy. And this list identifies the materials where demand is set to surge and where substitution is simply not going to be possible. So the idea is that this really allows us to plan ahead, to signal to industry and international partners the scale of supply we think we're going to need in, for example, advanced manufacturing, in clean energy, in defence, and making sure that we're positioned to secure those minerals before the global competition intensifies. And further to support our forecasting, we've also been working on, with industry, a demand aggregation platform, giving both ourselves and businesses a richer sort of UK-wide picture of what we think that future industrial demand and the time frame of it is going to look like, that will allow us to do more targeted engagement and support companies to secure that international supply and de-risk investment. The third element then of the strategy announced new funding of up to £50 million to support critical mineral projects by expanding research and innovation as well as supporting commercialisation. We've got further detail to be announced and really excited to share more about how this programme is going to tangibly help us scale up the UK's capabilities and technologies across that critical minerals supply chain. And we think that sort of taken together, these updates strengthen the UK's long-term strategy. It reinforces our existing capabilities, ensures our focus is aligned to where we think global markets are heading, and crucially, how we will supply against our domestic demand. So if you could please move to the next slide then, turning to what this means domestically. So looking at primary supply, we've got exciting geological potential on our doorstep. We host Europe's largest lithium deposits and some of the world's largest tungsten deposits outside of China. So companies such as Cornish Lithium, Cornish Metals are already demonstrating the potential for Cornwall to supply future supply chains for batteries, for electric vehicles, for advanced electronics, etc. We also see there is new opportunities to be unlocked in geothermal drilling projects, so geothermal engineering LTDs. Projects could not only power 10,000 homes with clean, carbon-free energy, but can also produce lithium as a byproduct, showing how, with a bit of ingenuity, we can create a dual benefit of solutions for energy security and critical mineral supply. And we think these developments, rather than just being geological successes, are going to represent high-value jobs, new industrial capability, and much greater security for the technologies that we're going to be reliant on in the future. So we're trying to build on our established industrial strengths and our processing and recycling capability. And indeed, we are home to the largest platinum group metals refinery in Johnson Matthey, and Europe's only cobalt refinery outside of Finland in Konichem. And earlier this year, as I'm sure you will know, Hypermag opened its rare earth magnet recycling facility, a major milestone in the development of circular and secure supply chains for rare earths. So this example of transformation from lab to production line is what we want to see more of across the country, and we think is how we will build a stronger and more resilient circular economy rooted in innovation and reducing our reliance on sort of the primary extraction from overseas. From an investment perspective, we're seeing continued support to the sectors. So alongside the 50 million fund announced in the strategy, we've already committed more than, I think, 165 million to critical mineral projects across the UK. And this is including funding from the National Wealth Fund and programmes such as Drive 35 in the auto space, in addition to financing for projects via UK Export Finance. And we're working to improve the wider policy landscape for industry, which includes things like energy relief for certain activities through the British Industrial Competitiveness Scheme, and also streamlined planning and permitting, which we know has been really problematic. And these steps, we hope, will influence the speed and confidence with which projects can move from that exploration phase into operation. And in addition, we've published a new investment prospectus developed with the Critical Minerals Association at Innovate UK, and that sets out this sort of broader integrated UK offer that should give investors both here and overseas a single coherent view of opportunities across extraction, processing, recycling and technology in the UK. If we move to the next slide, let me then just touch on research and technology. Thank you. So further to the success of our domestic critical minerals sector, we've relied on strong innovation, strong science, and indeed the UK is fortunate to have really world-leading strengths in both of these. So the Critical Minerals Intelligence Centre, which is delivered by the British Geological Survey, produces really high quality data that can assist in the sort of policy making and has already been really instrumental in defining that list of critical minerals that I've talked about. And the UK R&D ecosystem is a really critical asset as well. Our universities, our research institutes, they lead in geoscience, materials engineering, clean processing innovation, and institutions such as the Cranbourne School of Mines are playing a really vital role in developing next-gen skills and technologies. And you will have seen much in the press about how UKRI is sort of working and tilting its focus to those core sectors of the industrial strategy, working with industrial partners on advanced extraction techniques, waste remediation, and technologies to make our future supply chain cleaner and more efficient. And these strengths are central to the strategy and will ensure that we remain competitive, we're forward-looking, and we're able to scale capabilities that can really shape the next generation of clean energy and advanced manufacturing technology in the UK. In terms of the international picture then, if you can just move to the next slide, we know that we can't operate in isolation, clearly. So we're going to need trusted partnerships, joint investment, and indeed shared commitment to really open and transparent markets. So the strategy places really strong emphasis on deepening those international partnerships, strengthening that multilateral cooperation. And indeed through G7, the G20 and NATO, we're working with our like-minded partner nations to promote responsible sourcing and increase investment in new and diversified supply chains to drive up the sort of overall global ESG standards. And we're also forging targeted bilateral partnerships to help secure key aspects of supply and unlock opportunities for offtake agreements, for example, to support mutual investment. And a recent example is the new Memorandum of Understanding between the UK and the US. And we hope that this agreement will help us unlock further investment in UK mining and processing and recycling and deepen that cooperation between our industries and researchers and indeed through our finance institutions. Another example is how we've been working with the EU to develop more integrated supply chains. So we've seen progress with Tungsten West being announced as an EU strategic project, and we're going to continue to explore further collaborations across supply chains and financial markets, and potentially also work really closely on that demand aggregation. Beyond the US, we're deepening collaboration with Canada, with Australia, we've talked about EU, but also with Japan, India and Greenland. And also we signed a roadmap with Kazakhstan earlier this year. And I guess there's a range of international partnerships that you can see there where we are committed to diversifying those partnerships and enhancing our market access and indeed reinforcing the UK's role as a real trusted partner on responsible mining and high standards, as we've mentioned. And then, of course, not to forget, London remains the world's most important centre for mining capital. And our markets, the London Stock Exchange and London Metals Exchange, to AIM and AQUIS, raise more capital for mining and critical minerals projects than any other hub of a comparable scale. And that financial depth, combined with leadership in legal, engineering and standards, makes us a really good place for raising capital and securing those offtake agreements. So to conclude then, the critical minerals strategy, I think marks an important moment for us. It reflects a changing global environment. It sets out a clearer plan to really strengthen resilience, enhance capability, and support long-term economic growth. And across domestic extraction, processing, recycling, across international partnerships and multilateral cooperation, and across investment, innovation, and intelligence, we've got a whole range of activities that are well underway. So I think we've got the potential to shape the future of critical minerals in a way that supports our industrial strategy, strengthens our national security, and accelerates our clean energy transition. But we need really strong partnerships with industry, with investors, and with our international partners. And of course, scientific excellence will be a key part of that too. So look, I hope that you agree with my thoughts on the strategy. And look, thank you very much for your time today. And Sarah, I'll hand back to you, and happy to spend a few minutes on questions if that works for you.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Julia, for giving us that overview of what's going on from a UK perspective. So everyone, please put your hands together for the fantastic Julia. Just in terms of questions, so Julia, I guess when you came into this space of raw materials, because of course mining's not your background.
Indeed.
What was your first impression? What surprised you? Yeah, what did you think?
I think one of the things that I see lots of fantastic ideas. I mean, we are blessed in the UK with lots of ambition, fantastic baseline to work from. We're brilliant at. We've got lots of data. We've got lots of Cranbourne School of Mines, for example, and lots of industries and appetite to innovate. But I suppose what I didn't see was how that gets coordinated into a set of, these are the targets we're going to aim for. This is where we want supply to come from, and this is the demand that we want to signal. And I guess what this strategy has done is bring some of that clarity. And of course, when I came into this role, we didn't have an industrial strategy. And that work has, following the consultations, etc., has aimed to create a real partnership platform between government, between industry, between universities, to clarify these are the areas where we think we can grow, because we think we can compete internationally in those areas. This is where we have domestic demand. These are the things that need aligning in order to realise that demand, from regulation, from investment, from skills, etc. But then also, against those key sectors, here are the foundational industries that are super important. And I guess that recognition that minerals supplies into those growth sectors, therefore we better have a really targeted view of exactly what we want if we're going to deliver that ambition. So I think being really numerate about it and making choices is a change I've seen over the last couple of years, which I think is positive, because it is simply not possible to just spread money thinly across everything. You have to be really purposeful in the choices that you make. And in very recent times, we've seen, the geopolitics and the Middle East has shone a light again very strongly on the fact that we have global supply chains, and we really need that sort of secure and resilience angle on everything that we do, as well as just growth. It needs to be secure and resilient growth. Reference the Chancellor's speech a couple of weeks ago.
And with that, I mean, you mentioned, it'd be very easy to spread a little bit of money very, very thinly across lots of projects. Think, oh, look at all this stuff that we're doing, but actually none of it would be, or very little of it would be meaningful or material. You must get bombarded by people going, we should be doing this, we should be doing that. From I guess, what would help you? Like, how can we improve how we share thoughts and feelings or whatever with you? Because there must be, I mean, there's so much information that is thrown at you, and so many requests, and so many people saying, I've got the silver thing that we should be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that is absolutely true, and it is it's super challenging. But the critical minerals community and the industry, the academia in this space has already been really helpful in answering the sort of industrial strategy consultation and indeed supporting with the development of this strategy. So a massive thank you to the help that you have provided to date. If I think about my previous career, the strategy is the easy bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, the really difficult, challenging bit now is how we actually implement and deliver that and stay to the course. And if something isn't working or something is blocking, then we identify that quickly. We pivot where we need to pivot, but we highlight as soon as we can improvements in the plan that is going to actually generate the outcomes that we need. So I would really encourage the community to work through the things that we have, like the forum that we have on critical minerals, where we get the opportunity to have a really safe space conversation around what's working, what isn't working, what's in the way, what could we do. And of course, we're doing this in against a backdrop of a dynamic environment. So it's really important that that conversation is live and topical, because we are not operating in a static field here.
Yeah. No, absolutely. If there's one thing certain is that things are changing very
Yeah.
rapidly. I've got two final questions for you. One of them comes from the chat from Meenal Patel, who asks, we'd love to know any specific government support for new innovation, specifically for critical minerals and mining startups. Now, I know that you referenced a number of them in your presentation, but do you want to re-emphasize any of those or highlight any others?
I would simply say that you will, I hope, be delighted to know that Department of Business and Trade is working really closely with UKRI, so that we want to have a really coherent government position around what are the funding options, what's available for early stage versus later stage work in the critical minerals space. So I would encourage you to sort of work through your contacts in Innovate, in UKRI, the research councils, and in DBT, because we are committed to really clear join up within government and our sort of public bodies, so UKRI, to make sure that we are consistent in what we fund and we are consistent with the community in where the opportunity space is. So I won't talk to a specific example, but again, my plea to you would be, if you think there are glitches in that, if you think there are discontinuities, please flag them to us, because we are absolutely committed to make this work. We need to make sure that when we spend taxpayers' money, we are spending it in the right place with the right levers, working in unison to get the maximum benefit for UK taxpayers.
Now I can see Nigel smiling behind his hands at the moment. I'm not going to bring Nigel in because that would be dangerous, because we'll be here talking about it all afternoon, which would be no bad thing, to be honest. But I think one thing there is actually just the speed at which things are changing. So if we go back to 2021, when COP26 was held in Glasgow, I was really lucky in that I was invited to go and represent part of geoscience at the conference. And yet I was dismayed, because I was informed, no, this is no place for mining, because what role does mining have in the energy transition? At which point I thought, okay, in terms of awareness and understanding, we have a distance to travel. And I think massive credit to everybody in terms, because what happened was within 6-9 months, the first strategy was put together. We're now on version 3. And as you say, the easy thing is the strategy. But this version is better than the first version. So that's a good trajectory. We also, back in 2021, we didn't have an industrial strategy or anything like that. So it was quite difficult to know, well, when we're thinking about what our critical minerals are, we don't even know what energy mix we're aiming at in the UK. So I guess in terms of those changes and things happening within government, Julia, is there I know you can't give away any secrets or anything like that, but are you heartened by the fact that things do change and things do evolve? And I think now in 2026, there are far more people who are thinking about and changing things with regards to raw materials compared to just 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that the framework of, you know, the industrial strategy, trade strategy, small business strategy, national security strategy, etc., are providing the mechanisms for for a more interventionist approach in terms of that government. Oh gosh, hang on a minute.
Talking about energy
Yeah,
strategy.
a more targeted interventionist approach with clarity around the outcomes that we want um, domestically. So I think that's really helpful, and it signals a different direction from this government, which has been sort of a consistent narrative over the last number of in the last 18 months or so. So that's really helpful. I think also, I mean, you sort of mentioned sort of you know, mining and people thinking that's not part of a plan. Of course, it is. We always need to be better at telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, mining's completely changed, hasn't it? Clearly.
Yeah.
So being able to sort of tell the right story and advocate to the right communities, that's always a work in progress, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, things are changing around us, but therefore that's why a kind of really tight dialogue and partnership between government and industry and academia is essential, because we've got to be able to do this together. So yeah, but again, if that looks like it's not working or there's something challenging it, then please flag it as soon as you can.
Yeah. No, I think with all of that, you can see the sort of the positive shift that's going on at the moment. Is it fast enough for lots of people? Probably not.
Probably not.
But as well, the world is moving faster and faster, and I think we're all trying to cling on to it at the moment anyway. But I think one thing that has changed is, so, you know, you mentioned Camel School of Mines. There is another, and this is where I earn my salary at Imperial College London. There's another much better School of Mines called the Royal School of Mines, that's based at Imperial College London. I say that in jest. There's a big rivalry between Camel School of Mines and the Royal School of Mines. But I think that rivalry and that internal competition is a good thing, because of course that then, you know, drives what is considered to be good up. And one of the things that's been very interesting is that the fact that there's a lot more focus on critical minerals, and also as well from a um, funding from a research perspective that allows other universities who have got that heritage and they've got the skills there within the departments to be able to lean into those areas. And so this is my beautiful segue into our next speaker, if Pippa wants to begin to get ready, because Pippa is actually at Imperial College London. Pippa's not actually in the Royal School of Mines, but we will forgive you that, Pippa. That's quite all right. But I think that this is something here that by getting more people involved, welcoming more perspectives, more disciplines, more skill sets into this challenge that we're all looking at the moment, that's how we're going to be able to address it, rather
Yeah,
than just relying on whoever was left over from the last time people were talking
yeah,
about mining. But with that, I'm going to
exactly.
say a massive, massive thank you to Julia. Everyone, please put your hands together for the fabulous Julia Sutcliffe.